Hey, everybody, it's Career Happy Hour. I'm Andrew Beach. I'm a teacher of self-education. I help professionals like you communicate value to find great opportunities faster, whether you're working or not. That's through a pragmatic process of branding, planning, and effective networking. If you need support during these somewhat challenging times and the resume application just ain't doing it for you, give me a holler. There is a application that you can take advantage of to see if coaching with me would make sense. Just look in the description of the video and I'd be happy to engage outside of these streams for that purpose. If you're joining on Instagram, that would be a link in my bio. So welcome everyone. Every Friday, 3 o'clock Pacific time, you and I will be gathered here as a community to support each other. There was a lot of in my mind, announcements, right? Press releases of layoffs this week at a number of employers. And I just wanted to offer, obviously, my condolences for the separation, but also to provide some encouragement that instead of looking that this is an unfortunate situation, look at it as a liberation. And even though your employer may have been great, there's always someplace better. And that should be your hearkening call today, is always seek something better than what you had. So that's what I would advocate for you is keep your head up and look for the opportunity. That's the idea. So today's session, really, I didn't have anything prepared and until probably this afternoon when I started thinking about a lot of the transitions that I had been through in my lifetime and the different things that I experienced in terms of the process, in terms of maybe the emotional component that I didn't really realize was that important or critical to the process. But if you want to, you're welcome to come on live. And if you have a question for me, or you want to get some hands-on coaching right now, this is a live stream. It is live, and it is currently 3:02 p.m. Pacific time, actually 3:03 p.m. Pacific time here in Oregon. And wherever you're joining from, I welcome you. It's Friday the 13th, May 13th, 2022. And yes, this is a live stream. That means that you can click the link in the description. You can come on live with me. You can ask any questions or get advice or counsel. And there's no shame for me, there's no shame in seeking counsel. In fact, the good book says there's safety in an abundance of counselors. I would encourage you, seek out an abundance of counselors. If you're more comfortable doing so, go ahead and put questions in the comments or chat box. Any kind of questions would be fine, whether that's regarding career or leadership or professional communications, negotiation, personal branding, anything related to the topic of the day, which is dealing with the, and I'm not a therapist or anything, but the recognizing and dealing with the emotional components of loss when it comes to job or job layoffs or career transition or firing or really any kind of loss is what I would call it. Because it's not uncommon that even though you've separated from a company, during the process of finding work, you're going to go through varying stages of grief, and it's almost like a roller coaster. So if you have questions about this topic, then please, by all means, go ahead and put that in the comments or come on live. Either way is fine by me. If you don't want your questions public, you can always send me private messages through Restream. If you come into the back end here, like you're coming in for the live coaching, there is a private chat and you can take advantage of that. Absolutely. If that's something you are indeed interested in. But share this broadcast out. If this topic or what you learned today you think might be helpful to other people, send it to them in a private message or share it out on your social channels or what have you, or even just put a like or a thumbs up on this session. That would be great. It would mean the world to me that more people get involved in this process. Now, this is a community, and in the Career Happy Hour community, we honor each other by making time available to network. I know it's hard enough. There's 800 million accounts on LinkedIn. I don't know if you knew that, But there's a lot of people on social media that just have surface level connection. I don't want to have that for you. I want to have an opportunity for all of you to cross pollinate, get to know each other and support each other through what may be a difficult time, or maybe pay it forward. Maybe this is a call to you. If you're watching this video and everything seems good to you, it may not be good to everybody. And this may be an opportunity for you to say yes when indeed it isn't a challenging time for you. That's times may be really good for you. In that case, paying it forward could serve you well in the event the economy changes or the company gets acquired. I mean, things happen every day. And so please make yourself available. Put your LinkedIn profile in the chat, regardless of whatever platform you're joining by. And I would really appreciate that. It's signaling to everybody here that you're open to networking, and you will say yes when members of this community do an outreach. Now, if you need support on that, certainly I have some free resources I can provide you. Just hit me up in the direct messages. I have 2 things that I can send you. I can send you a networking checklist. It's just a little checklist to kind of keep you on track for your networking activities. And the other is the anatomy of a networking conversation. A lot of people think networking is something that it's not. And so that particular document, along with the companion audio from my podcast, is actually really helpful to a lot of people that I've sent it to. They found some, I think, clarity on what networking is and how they can use it to their benefit. So if that's you, just hit me in the direct messages, whether you're on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, doesn't matter. Just go ahead and hit me up on the direct messages, and I will send you those resources. Just ask for the resources I mentioned. I'm happy to send those to you. Okay, so what is the topic today? Well, the topic today is really a couple of things that as a coach, I need to be really conscious of when I'm dealing or coaching particular individuals. I always try to take the temperature during every coaching session to know whether or not the person I'm coaching is in one of these stages. And if so, how do I approach that interaction? This actually works really well too for sales. If you're in sales, being really sensitive to where your customer might be. This also works with yourself, right? So self-management, it might be something that you're dealing with internally. I get that. But it's one of the things I was made aware of, and I'll share it here, the graphic that I'm gonna walk through so that you can see it as well. And that is the stages of grief is outlined by Kubler-Ross, and also Kessler added a 6th stage of grief. So 5 stages of grief. You probably have seen this before. It's not uncommon when you have a loss or you're laid off from a job or terminated for cause or mutually agreed separation, that you go through a stage called denial, believing it's not true. How could this happen to me? I can't believe this. I'm offering value. I'm generating revenue. I was in sales when I got laid off. And yes, I was in the process of actually submitting an RFP the day I got laid off. So I worked really hard to get that RFP put together, and things were looking okay. But when you get that tap on the shoulder, it's hard to believe, right? You're like, this isn't happening to me. Is this really happening? It's like pinching. I kind of had the same response on 9/11, right? I was looking at the TV saying to myself, this can't be real. This can't really be happening. And so denial is a natural response to these kind of, I think, impacting events in your life. And so don't be surprised when you can't believe it's true. It's not true. The idea here as we go through these different stages is we try to recognize them and work through them as quickly as possible so we can get moving forward. And the second one is anger. So I remember when I got laid off, I went through that. First I couldn't believe it happened, but step 1 to step 2 was actually pretty fast. It was pretty fast. I was really angry. In fact, I had I had a feeling to hurt somebody that was delivering this information. And I've done lots of notifications of these types and been a resource at these notifications to be the career consultant or the person helping people through the difficult time. And I've seen all the different emotions at these notifications, and anger is one of those. And that's why you typically have some kind of security on site, or you have so if you're in that situation and you see somebody getting angry, you've got some backup. But the idea here is that it's not uncommon that you're going to feel some anger, some displeasure, some hostility toward the organization that laid you off or the person delivering the information, when truthfully, if you sat down and tried to make sense of what decision was made and why, I've never seen logic behind any of it, um, other than it's a financial decision. In most cases, it's a financial decision. Now, that's not to say that the company is losing money. It may not be true. The company may be making all kinds of money, and they just want to make more, and that happens. So, generally speaking, in my experience, the only reason to do these kind of events is financial, and it's a tragedy. I wish it didn't happen. To be honest with you, I wish that most organizations, and I have run across organizations that do this. I wish most organizations would make a good faith effort to spread the painful financial situation across all employees, so that everybody hurts a little bit and not a few hurt a lot. I wish that were the case. I wish there were, and I've seen organizations like this too, that gave you a certain fixed amount of time, 60 days, 90 days, something of that nature, to find another job inside the company. And so to retool yourself or reposition yourself for something else. And that those organizations would be an active participant in that transition from, say, one type of job to another type of job, staying in the organization. Because it's very expensive to hire new people. It's very expensive to lay people off. Both of those things have expense attached to them, um, that many organizations just don't measure. They don't measure the entire cost of something. What is the cost and lost productivity by those that remain, that are going through survivor's guilt, right? The people that are behind, that you left behind after you get laid off. How do they feel about it? Why that person and not this one? And there's lost productivity. What does it cost if you made a mistake and you laid off too many people and you don't have enough people to do the work, and now you have to go hire a contractor or rehire somebody? There's an expense to all that. And even though it may seem on the surface that it's a good financial decision, I've rarely seen that that financial decision was wise in the long term. It was only wise in short term. And so denial, anger, and then bargaining. This is where you start negotiating, right? Negotiating between what was and what is, or what could be, and preparing, and really it's an opportunity to reset, and the challenge that many of us have is, if we go through bargaining, we often then go into depression. And the bargaining and depression, sometimes, the speed in which you go through each of these stages is determined by the support you might receive. That's why coaching is so helpful, is that, hey, if I get a coach or somebody that can support me, or I get a therapist, that's perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with getting therapy or counseling in that capacity. I mean, there's no harm in that. There's no how would you say it? You shouldn't be embarrassed by it. It's natural that if you're going through a tough time, that seeking those types of resources, and many organizations have those resources available to you, that are there to support you through these processes. So take advantage of that. Absolutely. Take advantage of any resource that's being provided to you. So many people look at the organization and the resources they're providing as an extension of that organization. And it's unfortunate that they choose not to engage in those resources just because their anger got the better of them, and they stay too long in the anger phase, and they aren't able to do any bargaining and get to acceptance in some way. So look at these stages as stopping points, and how long you stop there is entirely up to you. Entirely up to you. And our hope and prayer for you is that you don't spend too much time in bargaining and depression, because that can be destructive, absolutely destructive. Um, the idea is to get as quickly to acceptance as possible. And to me, that's a spot where you say, you know what, I'm okay. At first, you might say, I'm okay, or I'm going to make it. And how would you say? You're telling yourself that story, which is great, but you don't really feel that way. Um, you say that because you want to keep up your steely veneer. You want to be the confident, member of your family. You want to look as if you've got it all put together, and you're not being very vulnerable or honest with yourself. And not that that's not valuable. It is. I think the conversations you have with yourself are valuable. Just be honest. And but once you get to acceptance, you know what? You're going to look at it and go, you're going to take a deep breath. You're going to let it out, and you're going to say to yourself, I'm okay. I'm going to make it. I'm going to be all right. And that's when opportunities come. That's when you have like this really interesting confidence when you're interviewing. It's really remarkable when you see people get through these and I've seen people get through these in 15 minutes. Literally, I've seen them go through denial, anger, and said, okay, I guess it's all right. You know what? It wasn't what I preferred to do, but you know what? I accept it. And it's really fascinating. It's because um, they knew they had a higher and better purpose. The higher and better purpose, or the meaning, was there. And I know that comes in step 6, but the idea for you maybe to take away after you've gotten through each of these 5 stages is there might be a 6th stage for you where you identify some kind of inspired future or meaning. I often refer to that as a noble ambition. If you have a noble ambition or something you're trying to accomplish with your life or your career or what have you, then, and that's permeating throughout, then the meaning part actually could come at the beginning. That if it's there at the beginning, all of these things are all these 5 stages are just there, and they are things that you process quickly. And I have seen that. I've seen that where people go through those stages relatively quickly and out the other end, no problem. No problem. Okay, so let's go through another framework here that I was made aware of during my consulting times. And it's this concept, and I like the visual of the valley, right? Going through the valley of, call it the valley of despair if you want to. But many of us, when we come to a situation where we might be laid off, mutually separated, or in some way terminated from an employer, we know something's going on. You see the signs, right? There might be, and I talked about this a few weeks ago with that spidey sense thing, that there's these guideposts, these milestones, or these red flags that go up when you know things are changing and they might impact you. You have this, I don't know, somewhat anxiety that something isn't right, and that spidey sense gets thrown off, right? And I've seen this before too, because when I was laid off, it was like, okay, well, the quarter before, the earnings announcement was not very good. And so even though I was laid off literally in November, right before Thanksgiving, which was horrible, the timing was horrible. Even though I was laid off in that time frame, guess what? It was like, January, February, April, May. So January, February, March, that's quarter one for most companies. That means in April, when they do their earnings announcement for the first quarter, they then announce layoffs. So guess what? We're in May. And so likely that there's organizations that had an earnings announcement within the last 45, 60 days, and they contacted their outplacement firm if they're offering those assistants. They're working through HR and some lawyers, right? They're engaging all these internal resources, knowing that they're going to be reduction in force. So it's easier to say reduction in force than layoffs or terminations or what have you, or getting rid of people. I guess that's a little more politically correct. But the idea is you likely know something's going on. You might see some key leaders leaving the organization and wondering why. That happens too, because they can see the writing on the wall. They have they have visibility to the financials, and so they can see, you know what, it's time for me to go. I can see that this is coming down the pipe, and I don't want to be a part of it. So you'll see leaders leaving the organization and so on. Go back and watch that live stream. I think it was from 2 weeks ago, about the Spidey sense. So that's the first thing. You recognize something's going to happen, and all of a sudden you're in a position where things just aren't the same anymore. You are seeing that it's not progressing the way that you had imagined. You may have gotten a new leader. I've seen that happen too, where you get a new leader and things just aren't the same anymore. And, you have to start from scratch. What they're expecting from you is something different than what you signed on for when you took the job. And so there's this, this dissonance, if you will. But you're recognizing and you're noticing that, yeah, I think something's going to happen. And now it seems like it is. And then all of a sudden, you're kind of in the in-between, in the no man's land, if you will, at the bottom of the valley. And you don't know which way to go. Sometimes it's unclear what your path is going to be or where the next opportunity will come from. And our objective is to not spend a whole lot of time in the valley of the no man's land, right? So think of it this way. Think of it as if you hired a coach or got some outplacement resources, that they're there to prevent you or at least help you get through or around or over this chasm. And this chasm is, you don't always have to go in the in-between. It may be that you find and evaluate new options early on. And so one of the ways you get out of the valley is to see possibility. You see the new possibility, you're evaluating options, you're looking at employers, you're checking out job postings, you've got what appears to be a decent resume, you're doing the networking, you're seeing activity, and you're getting traction. There's maybe some good conversations you're having, you get a couple of interviews, and all of a sudden you find yourself feeling a whole lot better. And the activity, I think, doesn't have to be something that's monumental. The little activities that you participate in are helpful regardless of how the outcome is measured. And so it could be that, reaching out to somebody you haven't talked to in 2 years, that's part of you evaluating options or trying to get out of this disorientation. Then at the other side of the chasm here is this newfound purpose, a new beginning. You see the potential and possibility, and again, you're in a position at that point to take a breath and say, you know what, I'm going to be okay. And you're telling yourself that, but you feel that it's true. And so as you go through this valley or go through the stages of grief and that sort of thing, just know that there's a team of people here on LinkedIn and other places in your circle of influence that want you to be successful. They want you to get through this process quickly. They don't like to see you as a family member or a friend or a what have yous struggle. I don't like seeing people struggle. It's one of the reasons why I'm in this business in the first place, because I've experienced all of these things, all of these different emotions, and that sort of thing. Let's see. We got some comments here by Tracy. So that's all I have in terms of prepared remarks. I do want to say, though, that you are more than welcome to come every Friday at 3:00 Pacific time for Career Happy Hour. You're welcome to put your questions in the chat. You're welcome to engage in this thing called Career Happy Hour. This is a team designed to support you. And we're all probably have gone through these situations before, and we're willing to support you. Let's see what Tracy has. Thank you, Tracy, for the comment. A psychologist has said that when grieving, you may revisit some of the stages. It's not a straight shot. The important thing is to fully process the grief. Yes. It's so you remember the valley, right? So the weird thing is is as you get to the bottom of the valley and you start going up, it's possible that you can slide backwards. So yes, you're absolutely right. It could be that you experience these emotions more than once, even as you go through a career transition. And let's say you go through, I don't know, 3 rounds of interviews with an organization, and it looks like they say they're going to get you an offer, and then you don't hear anything. Now you're like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me, right? You're back to the denial phase. And then you get angry. Why aren't they responding, right? Why can't they give me some feedback, or why are they ghosting me? Right? You start asking yourself the why questions that likely will never have an answer. Okay. So yes, you're absolutely right. That is something that could happen um, as you go through the process. Let's see. Tracy had another comment here. It says, "Who Moved My Cheese" by Spencer. Yeah, so I have that book, and it's a good book. It's actually a book that they give to a lot of salespeople, and in my mind, there is one book that kind of is the best book that I've read on networking, and it was actually something we did as a book reading during career happy hour, I think a couple years ago. So if you go to the YouTube channel and you look up my YouTube, just put in Andrew Beach, and you'll probably find me or see my mug on there. But we read through that book, and it was a great book on networking. And even though it's on networking, the idea is, hey, who do I reach out to? What do I say? How do I say it? And that sort of thing. It was really a good recipe book on networking. And yes, I think Who Moved My Cheese is a good one, because you can see, okay, this is now anecdotal. Let's see. Thank you, Tracy. Free resources for building job skills. You can post on your badges on LinkedIn. Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. That's cool. And so the other one, what was the other book? Well, there's lots of books. I mean, sharpening your saw is part of this process. Many organizations will give you access to LinkedIn Learning. You can often, through your local library, get access to LinkedIn Learning for free. I know that it used to be called lynda.com, and a lot of library systems have a master agreement that was in place prior to LinkedIn buying lynda.com. And so I can go to my library, I can log into LinkedIn Learning without paying for it as a premium user. So that's, yes. What would another book be? I really like The Go-Giver. I don't know if anybody's read that one. The Go-Giver is a great book. It's one of those anecdotal type books. But, if there's some challenge that you're facing, there's likely a good book to help you understand that. So one of the things I'm always interested in is how to manage time, right? Time management. And so there's probably 100 or 200 books on time management, right? If you want to get a book on, I don't know, programming or working SQL Server databases, or how to manage a SQL Server database, then there's probably tons of books on that. And so between books and the things that you could potentially learn on on YouTube or on LinkedIn Learning and other resources is astounding. I think the challenge is we often get engaged in these learnings or these resources, and we don't balance that with time spent in the presence of people. And there's a lot of energy, positive energy, that comes in being around people. That's why a lot of organizations are looking to go back to the office. Although many of us may not want to go back to the office, there is undeniable evidence that people are better off around people. That's just the truth. Now, whether you find that in your family or your neighborhood or your communities, that's certainly a valid point. But organizations also perform better if you're in a lot of ways around each other for certain amounts of time. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be spending 24/7 together. That's it. So there's extremes on both sides, where you're in total isolation, and on the other side, you're in total presence of each other. So, there's likely a place in between that works for both you and the organization. And the idea is that both sides remain flexible. So yes, we are hardwired for connection. That's why we're human. And not just with each other, but with our, past, present, and future. It's all connected. And I find it rather astonishing how you see the same things happen or the same situations come up, and each time is a learning experience. But anyhow, thanks for coming this week, folks. That's it for Career Happy Hour. I look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any topics or questions, please don't hesitate to send me a message or to put a comment in the stream here so that I can maybe put together a small training like this, these little micro learnings for you here on online, and we can help support you in that capacity. So thanks. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Career Happy Hour. Bye now.